Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, you heard what I said. I said good morning. And when we normally record in the evenings, today we're recording in the morning. I'm excited about today's podcast. But first, let me say welcome to the Rhythm Notes of Health with me, Kayenta. I am the soul of public health. Today we have a very exciting guest with us. And without further ado, I'm going to bring her in so we can get going. Good morning, Dr. Barry. Good morning. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Good morning, Dr. Adrian. Good morning.
Morning.
I cannot believe I freaking did
I can't either.
that. That's because I shouldn't have had that conversation that we had
I guess
before we started,
Mhm.
Dr. Adrian. Oh my freaking gosh, that was crazy. Forgive me, please forgive me.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the Rhythm Notes of Health podcast, Dr. Adrian. Dr. Adrian is not new to Blackpink, but I'm going to let her. What I recently learned is Dr. Adrian is extremely busy. So if you're going to want to get on her schedule, get on her calendar, you're going to want to do it soon. And if you're having any type of any mental disturbance going on, if you will, then she's the person. I mean, she's my choice. So yeah. Dr. Adrian,
Yes, ma'am.
tell tell everyone who you are.
I am Dr. Adrian. I'm a psychotherapist in the Atlanta area. But due to COVID and the fact that I was already certified in telemedicine, have clients all over the world actually, and am staying pretty busy. So I've been a psychotherapist now for 20. This is my 28th year.
Wow.
I was also in the school system for 20 years at the elementary, middle, and high school level as an assistant principal and guidance counselor.
Ah.
And I do a whole bunch of stuff. So we'll
Hence,
just
hence
leave
is your
it
no nonsense.
at
Hence is your no nonsense.
I think I'm just an Aries, so I am just pretty direct and matter of fact. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and you know what? I'm gonna say today is April 19th. Happy birthday to mom and happy belated birthday to you, which was April the 6th.
Yeah.
And my grandmother was April the 9th. So I have Aries all around me. So I always say I know exactly who you are because Aries raised me. So
Okay.
happy birthday to the Aries babies out there. You probably will hear this not on April 19th, but just when April 19th rolls around, know that these are the things that's going on. Dr. Adrian, let's get into this series. So, we are doing a vaginal health and sex series, which is what a lot of our women, our demographics is probably from maybe 30, 35 on up, right?
Mhm.
And so these are the things and the topics that they've been wanting to talk about. We started off talking about bacterial vaginosis of vaginal health and vaginal dryness and yeast infection. But we are getting into some other things that we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about can menopause ruin your relationship? We're going to talk about middle-aged women and sexual needs. We're going to be talking about what you'll be joining us again on self-pleasuring and age-appropriate behavior in women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Mhm.
And one of the doctors told me that she has a lady that's in her 80s who's actually still very sexually active
Mhm.
and wants to talk about it. So I'm excited to, number one, talk to her. Number two, say, oh, I look forward to having this till I'm 80. But some people are saying, oh, I got to still be having sex when I'm 80. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to have this particular subject on your mental health roadblocks and sex, because your mental input about sex definitely controls your sexual output
Mhm.
about sex. Specifically, I wanted to talk about the fear, your freedoms, your social background, your religious background, and bring it current to now and social media and how all these things affects our input when it comes to our sexuality, our sexual health, and how we relate to sex with ourselves and our partners.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I'm
mean,
going to tell you,
listen, you said so much. I'm like, okay, where do you want
well,
me?
let's start here. Let's
You
start
didn't
here.
answer the question. Okay, go
Let's
ahead.
start here. Let's start here. Let's start with your background, your social, specifically your social background.
Mm-hmm.
And to include the way that you was brought up with the thought process of what's input in causing these roadblocks.
Okay, so that's a good place to start. So we are all a product of our upbringing and our experiences. And so how we are molded and shaped, the seeds
Mm-hmm.
that get planted inside of us dictate how we do everything in our lives. And so, depending on what it is that you've been taught and told. So I was raised strict Catholic in an environment where you didn't have sex before marriage, where divorce was not an option. And so these were the things that were told to us. And as a matter of fact, when I was growing up, the Catholic Church frowned upon the use of birth control. And so, based on what it is that people are saying to you throughout the course of your upbringing, it significantly shapes the way that you see sex. And so a lot of times I will work with couples who have a disconnect when it comes to their intimacy. And a lot of it hinges upon what it is that you've been taught and conditioned to think, number one, as a woman in particular, because it's interesting that, most women are taught that, you save yourself until marriage. And so if men are out here being sexually active, then, then who are they not saving themselves with?
Right.
And so, just a big part of it, though, does hinge upon exactly what it is that is taught and told to us. My brother and I had this very interesting dialogue, because we always talk about how your parents tend to rewrite the story in terms of how you were actually raised and what they actually said, and I get it. As a parent of 4, you want to see yourself in the best light possible. And you want to hope you did the right things and didn't really mess your kids up. But we were having this discussion because, my mother told him that she had this set of encyclopedias that she used to talk to me about sex. And my brother, to put it in context, my brother and I are 20 years apart, same mom.
Okay.
And so she was saying, she had this encyclopedia set that she used to teach me about sex, and that she used the same encyclopedia set to teach him about sex 20 years later. But the funny part about it is both of us realized she didn't even have a conversation with us about sex, let alone use a set of encyclopedias. And I think that was about her level of uncomfortableness when it came to having conversations about sex. Because,
absolutely,
when you think about the generational divides that we have, the generations, 2 generations before us, there was just not a lot of dialogue about sex. It kind of just happened. You sort of learn from the people around you. And the seeds getting planted. And so fast forward to my generation and then my brother's generation, and it's like, okay, if nobody's talking about sex and everybody's having sex, then how are we formulating the opinions and beliefs that we have? And so now you come, you have the wonderful world of the World Wide Web. And so now there's information out here, right, wrong, and indifferent, that we can find that kind of helps to shape, our value system around sex. And so, but for a lot of people, depending on what you have been taught and told or not taught and told, it has a direct impact on how healthy your sexual appetite and relationship is to other people.
No, you're absolutely correct. And I like when you said, my mom, had this story about the encyclopedias, and because we talk about now the kids don't even have encyclopedias. They don't even know what encyclopedias are, right? But the fact that pay attention to the fact that she used the encyclopedias, because remember at the time that the encyclopedias were so popular, right? It was like, look up, this was a research, right? And whatever was in here was fact-based, right? And so notice that she used this particular entity of encyclopedia, because we all know that that's fact-based. Like whatever's in there, that's what it is. So whatever I'm telling you is coming from the encyclopedia, even though she didn't use it.
Right.
at least she knew her source to get the fact-based source that she would use to talk about sex. But you said that most things are taught and told, right?
Mhm.
And so I can think about what my conversation with my daughter is now. I have a little more freedoms than my mom, but I also understand why my mom had the restrictions that she had and the boundaries that she set to say, like, don't ask me that. That's something you don't need to know.
Right.
Because I do give my daughter freedoms, and she's 16, right? Because I do give her freedoms to ask me certain questions. She'll ask me questions like, well, mom, who was your first? I'll say, my Angelo said there'll be some things that you cannot tell your kids. And so I'm always I'm always telling her that, because then she'll ask me a question and then I'll give her an answer and she'll say, Mommy, that was too much. I was like, what? That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, you
Right.
may not want to know the answer to the things that you think you want to know the answers to. But I am a person who I really can't remember what I was told other than don't get pregnant,
Right.
right? That was probably the thing that was said to most people. These
Well,
girls,
you were told that. I wasn't even told that, because
you
if
weren't
you
even told
Catholic
that.
church, you're not supposed to be having sex. So
Right.
it wouldn't be a conversation about don't get
Oh,
pregnant,
oh,
because
so
you
so
have
let me
sex until marriage.
on
Yeah.
behalf of my mom, let me be clear about this. When she said don't get pregnant, that meant don't have sex. That
Right.
didn't mean go have sex and don't get
Right.
pregnant in my household. That
Right.
means don't go have sex. That ain't something you do. And if you do it, you're fast. Like,
Right.
fast girls have sex. And I literally thought that in my head for a long time. Like, literally that has been what was in my brain about sex. If you have sex, you feel fast. And if you feel this urge to have sex, you feel fast. So right now, today, I'm 53. And if I think about, oh, this is what I want to do, I feel fast. Because that's what I was told. You gotta
That's
feel
funny.
fast,
That's, I
right?
mean, but again, that's conditioning. That's how seeds get planted in people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at a certain point, you have to decide whether or not the truths that you are living are your truths or are they somebody else's truth, you know?
Hmm.
So what people fail to recognize is that we all have physiological responses and stimuli. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
talk about our hormones, you know, you talk about puberty and adolescence and all those things, a lot of times what you are feeling, it is absolutely normal and natural.
Mm-hmm.
But depending on what has been told to you, you are fast, or, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
then it shapes the way that you view sex, which is a natural, healthy part of being a human being. But
Say that part right there one more time, because I don't think people are clear about that. Could you just repeat what you just said?
sex
What is it?
natural. Sex is natural and it's healthy
Mm-hmm.
and it is normal for healthy human beings. And so a lot of times, again, the things that are placed inside of your head are going to dictate how you view sex, healthy sex, relationships, and all of that.
Yeah. And that's why we're talking about that input, because it's probably just in having this conversation with you this morning that I even realized that I relate fast to what I was told when I was little, and little. Now, I don't see it as a bad thing at this point, right? I see it as a good thing. Oh, I feel fast, right? But I didn't even relate it to that's what I was told when I was younger. If you think about sex, that's what was given to me, right? And now that's how I function with it, which for me again is a good thing. But also, upbringings and sexual experiences that children would have had, that they shouldn't have had, right? I know I have a friend who specifically says that she doesn't like a certain type of stimulation when it comes to sexual acts, because something that happened to her when she was a child, she was sexually molested, and this is what the person always did to her to stimulate her,
Mhm.
right? So to this day, she does not want certain stimulation because it happened to her, and it's going to bring back that feeling of, I know this person should be doing this to me because they said don't tell.
Right, right. And so when you talk about sexual trauma, that's a different um, discussion in terms of shaping
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, how you come to the place of being who it is that you are as an adult and how you view sex. And so
Mm-hmm.
when sexual trauma is involved, that is not dealt with, because
Mm-hmm.
understand, most of us experience some type of trauma in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not necessarily sexual trauma, but experiencing trauma is something that is very common, because
Mm-hmm.
trauma just means that something had an impact on you in a way that it created a traumatic experience. And so,
Mm-hmm.
because one person's trauma is not another person's trauma.
Correct.
When you start talking about sexual trauma, and you're talking about sexual trauma that is experienced during childhood, adolescence, puberty, all of that,
Mm-hmm.
it will have an impact on the way that you see sex
Mm-hmm.
if you don't get treatment for the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people experience sexual trauma, but it
Mm-hmm.
does not impact them for the rest of their lives,
Mm-hmm.
because they seek treatment at
Mm-hmm.
the point where they understand that the trauma is having a negative impact. And I need to have a conversation with somebody about this so that I can process through it and still be healthy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you and that's the reason that, and not that we're having the entire conversation about the sexual trauma, but it's important that we talk about it so that we can recognize these are the things that are blocking us from having this sexual freedom, if you will, is these sexual traumas. And so you said if they don't get treatment, what does treatment look like for a person? Now I know you know, but let's just tell them what treatment looks like to deal with that.
So let me back up, because it's not just if they don't get treatment, it's if they don't get treatment and treatment is necessary.
Mm.
Everybody has to look at the things that they have experienced in their life and to
Mm-hmm.
understand whether or not the things that I've experienced are having a negative impact on my
Mm-hmm.
ability to function on a daily and regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about sex, if somebody has experienced sexual trauma and they have not dealt with the sexual trauma, but let's say that inside of a relationship, they are not able to be intimate with their partner,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a possibility that they've not dealt with the sexual trauma, and that's the direct correlation in terms of why they're not able to be in a healthy sexual relationship with their partner. And so
Mm-hmm.
it would be necessary for them to go and seek treatment with a professional. And so that means going to the couch, having
Mm-hmm.
someone who is trained
Mm-hmm.
to help you work through the things that you went through.
Yeah,
And a part of that working through is understanding that the things that you go through don't define who you are.
that's right.
You have to be able to have those healthy conversations, and so that you understand that when you are a child who is taken advantage of sexually by an adult, there is nothing that you did that caused that behavior. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
part of the work through from a with a professional from the
Yes,
couch, because
yes.
this is not a conversation that you have with your girlfriends
Mm-hmm.
or with your family members
Mm-hmm.
or people that go out and call themselves coaching and that sort of.
Yeah.
This is conversation that needs to be had with a trained professional so that you don't do more damage in the
Mm.
process of trying to
Mm.
figure out how what has happened to you is
Hmm.
impacting who you are today.
Hmm. Dr. Adrian,
Yeah.
you said a lot, but one of the most important things that you just said was that you speak with a trained professional so
Yeah.
you won't cause more damage,
Right.
right? Because if you go out, like you said, Googling this, right? Going on to YouTube, right? And or talking to your friends who may not take this delicate information that literally has caused you to have dysfunction in certain areas and your whole self, right? And they don't know what to say, how to say, what process, what steps to take you through to heal, right? Then it can cause more damage. And that's very important to say because oftentimes we do things, even when we self-medicate, with synthetic drugs, if you will, that may now harm ourselves. That by the time we go to the medical doctor, right, we're worse than what we were when we first started because now we're going to self-treat ourselves. And so the fact that you said that you have to get help, you have to get treatment with a trained professional, right? Who has been taught and has gone through the processes and the practices of knowing how to deal with these things that happen to you. Because you don't have to live your life with this clogginess, if you will, in your mind of things that happen and you're not, like as you said, functioning
Mm-hmm.
um day to day, or you're not functioning fully or even having to be able to have sex with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Get help. So in the right here in the middle, I'm going to say get help. And Dr. Adrian, if you would just give your information, we're gonna post your information. But if you just give it now, and then we're gonna give it again, because it may be somebody who's listening and they may have to get off at this point. But I want them to know your information, to know that they can get help, they can come to you. Well, y'all got to get on her schedule now, so that means you got to call soon. You're gonna have to get on,
Kind of
you got to
tough,
get on
but
her
yeah.
schedule now. But get help. And although I am saying, my choice for you is Dr. Adrian, there are an array of doctors out there that who are trained, who can help you. So if you don't let it be an excuse that I called her and I can't get an
Right.
appointment, because there are some people that you will be able to get some appointment with. So Dr. Adrian, so at this time, if you just tell us how to reach you if someone needs to talk to you.
Well, my office number is 404-766-2211. So
Okay, if you
that's
say it one
definitely
more time and a little bit slower.
404-766-2211.
Okay,
That's
so
my office
we
number.
have Dr. Adrian's number. Call her if you need to talk to her so we can move past this, because we're talking about this whole vaginal health and sex series because we want women to be free. And we probably should have been having this conversation earlier, but timing is very important. And
Yeah.
sometimes that we're not ready to receive information that's important for us to get if we're not in a good space. So I am very sensitive to this particular area because I want people to be able to address it. And I'm very jovial and fun and all those things. But when it comes to something that this serious that really affects, because I talk to a lot of women, and they'll say things to me, and I'll say, "Hey, listen, this is what you should do. Get help." I this is not what I do.
Right.
I'm a health educator. This is not my specialty. This is not what I do. I can talk to you about some diabetes stuff, right? And I can talk to you about specific things, but when it comes to matters that, as you said, a trained professional, it's important that we speak to a trained professional. But so now we've talked about this social background, right? And we've also talked to you hint on religion. We've talked about molestation, if you will, but also you hinted on religion by saying that you're Catholic and what was happening. But let's just talk about religion as a whole,
Mhm.
and let's just, if you will, because I know you, and I know your background, and I know what you already know, have addressed before that I've heard. So if you would just talk about how religion even started to control us and our sexual being. So if that goes to slavery, if that goes before slavery, if you can just even tell us to what how this started to control us and how it's controlling us more. Not this newer generation, because they really not weird. They're gonna do what they want to do. And we'll talk about that in a minute also, because it's some things that we can pull from them to bring to ourselves, right? So if you would just talk about the religious aspect when it comes to sex and well-being and mental roadblocks.
Well, I think that, a lot of people experience what we call church hurt.
Mm,
And
mm,
it's because, again, of what you are taught, told, and conditioned to believe. And so if you are in a religious practice where, you get into the habit of going into a spiritual place, building, or whatever. And so on a regular basis, you are being fed with things, whatever those things are. And so, depending on what it is that you are being fed, then
mm-hmm,
they are going to grow down in your spirit. And
mm-hmm,
so, you're either going to accept these things as your truths, or you're going to discard them. And so,
mm-hmm.
for most people, when you are impressionable, and that is, up to the age of 20, 21, 20, now adolescence has changed up to 25, but
Mm,
during those impressionable years, the people that you value and respect are the people's whose opinions you absorb,
mm,
until you recognize that, maybe some of what has been said to me applies to me,
mm,
but some of this doesn't apply to me.
mm.
But when you are in that stage of being very impressionable, you kind of soak up everything. And
Yeah.
so, as a result of that, what we've been taught and told, these seeds that have been planted in us, are either going to grow some weeds or they're going to grow some flowers. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times the dysfunction that we are having inside of our relationships are a result of the weeds that have been grown that we're not recognizing it as weeds. And so when you are growing up and, for example, you're hearing things from the pulpit in terms of, you know, what you shouldn't be doing and what you should be doing. And you're also sitting inside of a spiritual household, spiritual place where you know that you've heard the rumblings and the murmuring.
Right.
Who's sleeping with who and who's with who and all this. You know, it can become very confusing in terms of what your spirit is supposedly being fed in relation to what it is that your eyes are seeing and your ears are hearing.
Right.
And so, you know, so when it comes to religion and spirituality and what it is that you practice in terms of your faith, you have to be able to figure out what your own belief system kind of looks like. Because, and I'm talking about as an adult, because we are not born with thoughts and beliefs. They are given to us. So people give them to us based on who it is that they are. And so it's not like, you know, I think that people just set out to give you wrong information or information that won't work for you. They give to you based on who they are. And that's the people from the pulpit, the people that are raising you, the people who are educating you, everybody around you. They are giving to you based on what they know to give to you. But at a certain point, if you recognize that what has been given to you is either not something that works in your life or something that is not true in your life, then you get to decide that you don't have to accept this. You can discard this. You can get rid of this. You don't have to take it along with you on your journey as you continue. Yeah.
Or as I say, change the trajectory of the thought. I have some songs that meant something to me when I was in college, and I like the song, and I don't want to think of what it meant to me when I was in college. So I'll say, I'm going to rethink this song because music triggers me, right? So I'll say, I'm going to rethink this song because I don't want it to mean that anymore. It now means something different to me. But I'm conscious enough to say, I'm going to tell myself, this is what I'm going to do. But when you said, Dr. Adrian, when you just said a lot of us experience church hurt, boy, that hit deep. Listen, because and I know that's a whole nother conversation, but church hurt is very deep, right? It's probably one of the main entities right now that we're still, for the most part, have segregation is because we assimilate with our own, right? And I'm really with it, and that's I mean, I like that because I like that we still have something that we can go and gather together and it's ours, right? But inside of that, we have what's called church hurt. I say that, you know, the reason that I believe what I believe today is because growing up, my parents said, if I asked them questions like, well, why did God do so and so and so and so? Because I was raised Christians, like, what? Well, why is this? They would say, you don't question God. Right. And so, and really now as an adult, I know that they really didn't know the answer. So they gave me to the best of what they could give me is don't question, because if I don't question God, it means I don't have to question them. And it means they don't have to give me an answer. Right. And so because of that, it's like, well, then if I can't question God and get these answers, then this might not be for me. This, you know, this Christianity may not be what I need to do, because y'all tell me don't question. I'm very analytical, right? I'm intrigued. I want to know what's going on. You telling me don't do it, right? So when you said, listen, I feel like I'm in therapy this early this morning. My day should be a great day because I feel like I'm in therapy early this morning. Because I always say I'm a forever learner, right? I'm a forever student. I'm always learning. So when you said church, and this is the second thing this morning that you said that it'd be like, oh, you talking to me, right? Now it's this whole church hurt thing. Because when you say this, I say instantly, dang, I think I experienced church hurt, you know, and not so much from the church, but from the people who it was a part of the church. I've experienced this church hurt. And because I've experienced church hurt, I decided to do something different, right? And I think a lot of us have experienced church hurt. I cannot believe how it literally gave me temporary paralysis when you said it. You said it and it was like, oh, something jolted me, like really and truly. And I was thinking as you was talking, like, wow, this church hurt is so very important for us to talk about, that we probably gonna have to have a whole nother show just about church hurt, because people need to heal themselves in order to be productive. It's not okay. I always say it's not okay to just live to be 90 and 100 years old if you're not living to be a wholesome you, right? And the only way to live to be a wholesome you is to deal with these things. So you said the church hurt is important when it comes to, because then we hear things, you said we hear the rumblings, then we hear things that's going on in the pulpit, right? And then we say, well, if they up there doing it, and then they getting blessed, they got big, nice houses, they got nice cars, and they know they're doing this, why shouldn't I do it? And then you feel bad because you're doing something and you think that you're going to get punished. You think things are going to happen to you because you're not doing certain things. And women also tell me that they don't do, and this is really crazy, Dr. Adrian, but it's the truth. Women say that they don't do certain sexual positions because the church says you should just do missionary. And they said, let's see, I didn't know this, but apparently this is where the missionary position came from. Is that the truth?
Listen, I don't know the history of the missionary position, so
yeah.
I try to pretend like I do.
Yeah, yeah.
I think again, we have to all be aware of where our conditioning comes from, and so if you are not having open dialogue around conversations about sexual health and well-being, then chances are you are carrying a lot of old information from whoever it is that planted that inside of you, whether it was something that was actually told to you or something that you happened to stumble upon, in a book or in a magazine or on a television show. And so, I think that people don't understand the significance of our shaping from the environment around us. And so you have to literally stop and ask yourself why you think what it is that you think. Because again, thoughts are not something that just happen. They are planted in us. So we don't come onto this earth with this set of thoughts. Everything is given to us. And so it is your responsibility to figure out who gave it to me, where did it come from, and is this something that I still believe? And so, I am a firm believer that when you are talking about sexual relations, that between consenting adults, between those two individuals, their agreements are the only thing that matter. And so not what anybody else says is right or wrong, but it's what do we agree upon as two consenting adults that is appropriate between us, that does not cause an emotional or physical or mental anguish between us. And that has to become the definition I think that adults are using in terms of healthy sexual exchange.
No, Dr. Adrian, you're absolutely correct. It is what is defined, what you should be defining. And Dr. Adrian, I'm like, so when I of course, when I came up with the topic, it was only you that I had in mind, that I wanted to be a part of this conversation. But as we're talking about this conversation today, it is so important that we do have this conversation, and it's important that we start to deal with things. I don't even think I was very clear of how important this conversation is when I had the thought process. I knew I wanted to address it, right? But as we're sitting here talking, I said before, I feel like I'm in therapy, right? Because I am about, you have to be willing to be about having healthy, wholesome relationships and being the best you, and what that looks like to be the best you. And when you relinquish some of these things and thought processes, you feel better.
Yeah.
You're not, it's not dark all the time. You just literally, you feel better in your approach with things. And you earlier you talked about, what the society and social, as a public health a health educator, and I'm working on my doctorate. I'm gonna say 60% of our coursework is about um, your social upbringing, your where you are, what you do, because they are clear on, and I'm glad they finally got it right. Right, they are clear on that in order to make change, we have to deal with the social elements of why people do things. Right, it's they don't wake up. It goes back to just what you said. It's the thoughts and beliefs that people have given us. Right, the thoughts they've given us to now believe. And so I think that they're finally getting right to say, hey, we got to address where a person, their environment, their culture, everything, because all these things cause them to act in a way that they're doing. Which brings me to this what is this now generation called? I call them now. My daughter told me it's not now. She want me to be proper, but this now generation is what I call them, and I call them now because they whatever they see. Right? What do you call it?
Zers.
What's that now?
Zers. Zers.
The Zers. Right, this Zer generation, they are much different than we are when it comes to
everything.
Their sexual everything, right? And some things we can take from them, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And some things they need to take from us, right?
Yeah.
But what I like about them is they're fearless, right? Yeah. We have been trying to be this fearless us, right? I'm talking about on our DNA. We have been, and since we've been brought to America, we've been trying to be this fearless us, and a lot of us have been fearless to do things that we do. We've tried to be this fearless person, and now it's on our DNA. And I think this generation, we have now bred this generation who's fearless, and they have freedoms. They're going to do things differently. They're going to act differently. And when it comes to their sexual being, there's 99 terms out there. We're not going to get into all of that because this is just what's going on now, and I want to address it. Some things, again, I'll be like, oh, okay, I like that they do that. Like we need to take something from them. But the thing I think that causes roadblocks again is that people are measuring themselves up to what they see and what they hear on social media, and they think that their sexual lives should pattern what they see, and now it's causing roadblocks for them, right? It's either if you're out and you're in a relationship and you're having sex, then again you're fast or you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, and so I'm going to save myself over here, and so that's going to make me better than. So it's all of those things, and I know that you've dealt with these things of social media. So how does that impact our mental health roadblocks when it comes to sex?
Well, I think that what everybody recognizes is that social media, and when I say everybody, I mean the adults of a certain generation, what we recognize is that social media, like everything else, that shaping that I'm talking about. So for us, we were shaped too, but it might have been, we were shaped by the things that were on television or the things that you heard in conversations from other people. So any stimuli outside of yourself is shaping. And so with social media, it's just an expansive movement that allows for a greater reach, which is both frightening and at the same time could be beneficial. Frightening in terms of the information that it allows to reach so many people in a very short amount of time. But at the same time, that's the benefit of it. The amount of information that can be reached by a large group of people in a very small amount of time. And so the part that we have to be concerned about is, what is the message that is being sent out here through social media to our impressionable children and youth and adolescents, that that age group that I said is very, very impressionable, because seeds are getting planted, and either the seeds are going to grow weeds or the seeds will eventually grow flowers. And for most people, a lot of weeds are grown before you recognize that they are weeds, and you have to figure out, how do I get rid of some of this thinking and shaping that is not beneficial to me and is actually harmful to me, so that I can allow some flowers to grow. And so, you know, we have to do a better job. Our generation has to do a better job about having what I call crucial conversations, which aren't always comfortable, but are very necessary so that we have healthy conversations around sex with the generations coming behind us. And so that they are not just kind of figuring it all out as they, you know, go on their own. And so, you know, I am a mother of 3 boys and 1 girl. And so, you know, a lot of conversation that I thought my ex-husband would be having because he was the man in the house was not happening. So the conversations with my boys around sex, just like my daughter, it came from me. You know, and so I was the mama that was making sure that when my boys went off to college, that they had a case of condoms, because I was not going to be unrealistic. And I also knew that those conversations had not been had with their father, who, you know, again, shaping and conditioning.
Yeah.
And it was just my own thought process that, oh, as a father who has sons, that this is the conversation that you would have. Yeah. So, you know, for many of us, we just have not yet recognized the full impact on what you've been given, what you've been taught and told, and how it has a direct implication on how you move forward with your own children or your grandchildren, in either not having conversations because they weren't had with you, or learning that I need to have these conversations, because if I don't, they're going to get the information from the outside stimuli. And so for this generation, a lot of that is social media, which is not going away. It will continue to have a huge impact and implication on who our kids become. And so if we don't want the information to solely come to them through outside stimuli, then we have to make sure that we are very present and even become uncomfortable in some of this conversation that we have to have.
Right. Dr. Adrian, uncomfortable. Absolutely. Yeah. You're right. We have to start having these conversations, even if they are uncomfortable. And if it gets to a point that, you know, you don't need to say something, just say, Maya Angelou said there will be some things I can't tell my kids, but you can tell them a lot of things, right? You can, you know, friends of mine will say to me, I wish I had these conversations with my daughter, you know, and I'll say, have this conversation. I truly believe, Dr. Adrian, that men shouldn't tell women about what they like for sex, right? What should feel good for them. And I think that a lot of us, a lot of parents in my generation, a lot of my peers, they don't tell their daughters the things that they should be telling them. And they know different because we went to school together. So I know they know different, right? You're not telling them this. And so to me, if you don't tell them this and address these things, you're wanting a male, or whomever, someone else, to now tell them what and how they should feel and address when it comes to their sexual being, right? I also believe that, you know, here in my household, just as you were saying, I talk to my daughter about sex, but I'm always telling my husband, who'll be like, all he want to talk about is don't honk the horn when you come out here to pick her up, come to the door, and is the guy gonna like sports, right? And I'm saying, you're gonna have to address other things with her because you're the male. But then if you don't say something, I'll be like, well, I'm just gonna tell you my opinion of what, because I've dealt with, right? So because it's uncomfortable for him. He has a daughter. If he had a boy, he would be having a whole conversation with the boy, right? But because it's, you know, like a couple said, we had dinner with couples when they were younger, and the couple said to us that they had a daughter and a son, and the male said that he had conversation with his son about masturbation. He had a conversation with him, right? And I said, but had you had this conversation with your daughter? He said, absolutely not. She better not be doing that. And I said, so why is it okay for your son to sexually explore? And you're literally sitting here gloating about it, if you will, but it's not okay for your daughter. So now,
but again, Ayanta, all that goes back to conditioning. And so what has been told to you. And so when we expand our knowledge and understand that sex is healthy, and that it is something that all human beings are going to engage in at some point, and that we are better off having uncomfortable conversations so that we get the correct information out there, you know, because we could have a whole other conversation in terms of, you know, same-sex relationships, and how sometimes there is so much guilt associated with the fact that you can have an attraction for somebody of the same sex when attraction is a physiological response to hormones. So that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole nother that's a whole nother conversation, Dr. Adrian. But there are a lot of conversations that need to be had just even on this whole your input controls your sexual output. So I've kept you to our time, but I want you in closing, Dr. Adrian, as I said, you literally just got a snippet of what Dr. Adrian can help you with, the processes to heal yourself, to be more of a whole being of yourself, if you will, and to understand not only these mental health roadblocks when it comes to sex, but just as today we're talking about one thing, and I'm in on the church hurt part, and I mean, you know, I'm in on other things that you talked about just in this moment, that I'll have some self-reflecting time today to just think about, wow, she said, you just making nuggets of phrases, and it's just like hitting me like, what is, I'm talking about you, but I'm not talking about you, right? So, so it's like, you want to do your session on your podcast today. That's how I feel today, because this has been so good, and just a miniature of reflection of what you can do to help heal yourself. So, in closing, Dr. Adrian, what would you tell our our audience about mental health roadblocks? And not that you haven't said everything or a lot that they need, but just to, what are your closing thoughts about mental health roadblocks and sex?
So sex is a normal, healthy part of being a human. And if you are not experiencing the joy that comes along with sex, then you need to examine a couple of things. And so I always say, you know, every day we should be reflecting on the people, places, and things in our lives. And so, you know, perhaps your lack of fulfillment with sex has a direct correlation to the people that you are involved with. So you got to examine the people that you are involved with. You know, are you in a relationship with someone who does not make you feel comfortable when it comes to intimacy, does not make you feel nurtured and safe when it comes to intimacy? Because if that is the case, you've got to examine why that is.
Wow.
Is the why because of how you've been conditioned and raised, or is the why because of that person not being the person that can help you to feel whole and complete when it comes to sex? And so sex is natural, it is healthy, it has many health benefits to your physical and your emotional well-being. And so being able to connect with someone on that level is very close to being spiritual when it is with the right person under the right circumstances. And so if you find yourself in a situation where what you are feeling is not pleasure, it's time to examine whether or not who you are with is a person that can help you to become your best sexual self. And so we have to examine our thoughts. You know, where did the thoughts come from? Which thoughts we probably need to get rid of because they are not healthy or they are antiquated thoughts. And, you know, and truly examining the partner that you share this very intimate experience with. So, you know, you gave me some things to think about as well. And so I'll be doing a lot of conversations about mental health, of course, during the month of May on my podcast, Couch Conversations with Dr. Adrian.
Which are good, which are very good. When they're over, I say, oh, it's over. Oh,
thank you. Listen, and then Lounge Conversations with Dr. Adrian, where it goes down after dark. Starting in May.
Oh, okay.
So I just needed to give myself a break. And you know, my producer is like, are you coming back this week? And I'm like, I'm still celebrating my birthday.
Yeah.
but thankful for the work that God has
Yeah.
designed me and purposed me to do.
Yeah.
So, they
Dr.
can
Adrian,
check me out on Couch Conversations with Dr. Adrian.
Dr. Adrian, but that okay, because this is the
Lounge
fast part.
conversations. Lounge
Lounge
lounge conversations.
lounge versations. That lounge versations got me saying, wait a minute now, what's this lounge versations about? Because
Yeah.
Dr. Adrian, we need a partner on one of these topics with
Yeah.
the lounge versations, and
Yep.
maybe it could be the one with the women in the different ages, because that is going to be so good,
Yeah,
right?
I would love to. Again, I am all about having conversations
Mm-hmm.
that educate and empower men, women, and children
Yes.
to become their best selves all the
Yes.
time.
Yes. No, and you're the person for that. This is Dr. Adrian is Blackpink certified, right? This is my choice. I have been choosing her ever since I met her. I have literally been in love with the conversation that she gives you to pull you in. So from the moment that I met you at an event, I have literally been like, I love Dr. Adrian. Like, y'all gotta,
I
y'all
love
gotta
you.
understand. No, thank you. Y'all gotta understand. Your ears probably, as my grandma would say, your ears probably should be burning because I talk about you often. And as people say, for the people who are viewing this, you see her red hair, so they'll say the redhead lady, right? So now you become your hair has become a signature of identification who you are. So if they're looking at pictures, they go like, "We looking for the redhead. We looking for the redhead lady," and and I do mean redhead if you're not listening to this, that looks like all of us, because that's important for me to educate, because people receive better when it comes from people who
Right.
look like them. So once again, let everyone know how to reach you, your phone number, your social media, and thank you so much for coming on to the Rhythm Notes of Health to help us better understand ourselves and become the whole person.
So they can reach me at 404-766-2211. I am on Facebook. I am Couch Versations with Dr. Adrian. And so they can always send me a message on Couch Versations with Dr. Adrian. And on Instagram and Twitter, I am at Dr. Adrian, and doctor is spelled out. So it is DoctorAdrienne.
Dr. Adrian, this was wonderful. This is so good. And I probably am not even expressing how good this has been for me. Now, Dr. Adrian, we're going to be back on here next Monday, right?
Yeah.
So I am so looking forward to now. I feel like I have a ritual starting my Mondays off, getting therapy with Dr. Adrian. While everybody else gets therapy. Look, so tune in for my next session. No, but no, so thank you for my next session next Monday. But Dr. Adrian, I'm so excited. This particular podcast will be released this week. So I can't wait till people hear about this. They're gonna want to know more. And again, I tell you, if you want to get on Dr. Adrian's schedule, you're gonna have to call her. Thank you, Dr. Adrian. Take care. Have a good week, a wonderful, productive day, because just from this conversation, I will. I really, really appreciate that. Have a good day.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye. Oh my gosh. This has been so good. Dr. Adrian has, I told you, I feel like I am in, counseling this morning with her. I feel like, she has given us so much. And I feel like I really have been in counseling with her, talking about um, these mental health roadblocks with her. I feel like I've literally been in counseling. So make sure that you could continue to tune in. Make sure that you are keeping up, subscribing to us. We're on all podcast platforms, and make sure that you're subscribing to us so that you can get this information from the Rhythm Notes of Health podcast. Because in order for you to hear what's going on, then you're gonna have to listen, right? to what's going on. I am trying to get my artist going today, my feature artist going today. Um, I'm trying to get him going, and so you can hear his song. My feature artist today, after getting such a great show going, is Calvin Richardson. Calvin Richardson is an independent artist. I'm sure this is him right back behind me. His latest project is Gold Dust, and the song that he is released for you to listen to is If You Think About Leaving. But I chose to play Let Me Love on You because we're talking about the freedoms and the fears of mental roadblocks when it comes to sex. So if you want to learn more about Calvin Richardson, he is available on all download musical platforms. He is Calvin Richardson. I am Calvin Richardson on Instagram, and you can get him at the Calvin Richardson Experience.org. Check him out, go follow him, tell him that the Rhythm Notes of Health sent you to hear him, and just make sure that you are literally finding new music, discovering while you're discovering all these things about yourself that you should be discovering. Listen, today has been wonderful. This whole series on women's health and sex series, I'm so freaking excited about. But as I said earlier, when I said I was going to have this series, I had no clue of all of the things that I would be learning as we're doing these series. I hope you're learning. I hope you're tuning in. Remember, we repeat what we don't repair. And that's a lot from what we just heard today. We repeat what we don't repair. And I wanted to give you this is my soul note that I gave you with Calvin Richardson. Make sure you're tuning in. Remember, when life moves fast and your mind does too, remember to breathe. It will get you through. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're tuning in. Tell a friend, share it. And until next week, I am the soul of public health, Kayenta. Take care and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye.